This subject on hormones is something I just got logged onto. Like all the subjects I've become very passionate about, somehow they just show up on my radar, and very complex subjects. Like, I didn't grow up with this understanding on, like, I didn't even really know what testosterone really was growing up. I was just like told, like, it's, you know, you got too much of it. That's the only story I ever got growing up, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm in the locker room and it's like, man, there's so much testosterone here. I didn't really know what it was, like what it is actually doing in my body and why it may be a good idea if I do have enough of it, right? And how if I learn how to kind of calibrate that hormone along with all the other accompanying hormones, I could actually achieve some pretty interesting effects in my body and my mind. Actually, what hormones really are, simply, they're chemical messengers in the body that inform your cells on how to respond or how to act, right? Or how to, really in our world, how to respond to stress. That's really, if you really want to distill it even further, it's how our body is able to respond to what's called a sympathetic state and become a little more parasympathetic, which is more just like able to buffer the stress of our world, right? So we don't allow certain hormones that may be out of balance to actually dominate our behavior, meaning aggressiveness, meaning irritation, meaning brain fog, you know, a lot of relational issues you can look at, and there's a very deep correlation with hormones specifically, but then also even into like just neurological health. The actual anatomical health of the brain, this has been correlated that a lot of marital issues actually are directly correlated to toxins that people are breathing in, specifically environmental and furnishing toxins, like VOCs we mentioned a couple classes ago, that are actually people are breathing in. It's causing craters in their brain. And that has a deep effect on, obviously, I mean, of course that's going to affect this subject, right? The hormones are dictating the way we respond to things and how well our brain is able to hold its attention to something, right? A lot of times brain fog or things that we call ADD or ADHD, attention dialed to a higher dimension, I like to say. Things like that actually can be kind of worked out if we took a new approach to this, which is actually just kind of like what this is, just very getting back to whole foods, getting back to natural foods. And that's the distillation here, is that after we go through all the understanding what these things are, then it's just going to be like back to common sense. It's back to just eating real food. And what I like about that is now we're finding out that the sex hormones are actually your longevity hormones. But that's kind of taboo. Right? We don't talk about that in society. It's kind of like we don't want to talk about SEX. We don't want to talk about the drivers behind SEX and actually why SEX is a prime indicator whether you're in balance or not and whether you're on the good trajectory or not. Does that make sense when I say that, right? Estrogen is defined as female sex hormone, right? And that's just kind of an easy kind of way to categorize that. Now, does that mean that this is all men and all women? No. Yes, exactly. See, there's a combination. There's masculine and feminine, and as beings, we have a combination of both, right? So that's really the key here, is that when I start talking about things like estrogen dominance, this distinction is important, at least important to me as it showed up, is that it's making the distinction that it doesn't mean that your body has a huge amount of estrogen flooding it. What it means is that the ratios are out of balance. So for example, if you're a woman, your dominant hormone you want is progesterone, right? Progestation. That's that's a dominant female hormone, but it's an androgen, meaning it's a growth, a youthening hormone. It's a longevity hormone, right? If estrogen, and there's different types of estrogen, they outcompete progesterone, many of the age-associated conditions that we see in especially women, we'll get to men in a moment, are actually very much related to that one dynamic there, right?
So you mean physically aging,
like physical aging, like blemishes on the skin, sagging of the skin, gray hair, losing the hair, losing your eyesight, anything really, I mean, anything, I can say that, because I'm not the first person to say it, definitely not the most credible person to say this, is that every single age-related issue has a hormonal trigger to it, an estrogen trigger to it.
So it's too much estrogen?
It's an imbalance.
Okay.
That's the easiest way for me to say it. It's the ratio is off.